Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. I decided to split this into a bunch because I didn't realize how long the Q&A was, so yeah, that's pretty much why. So we had a look at the aviation portion before, now it's time for the ground portion, and we start off with smoke grenades, surprisingly. So smoke grenades detonate quite easily, currently while shot from other launchers, or within launchers, sorry, forming a cloud around a player. Do you consider this a problem? Since the first appearance of this mechanic, the destruction of smoke grenades, we have changed the settings of their destruction. Now they take more hits from machine guns to destroy, as well as the probabilities of a smoke grenade triggering a smoke cloud, and their destruction with local fire without smoke formation was adjusted. In the future, we'll analyze statistics and feedback for possible improvements. I like how somebody's gone, hey, you know this new thing that's in the game that might actually change the way that people play and is kind of cool? Yeah, so let's nerf it into the ground because I don't want it to happen because I like the way the game is, right? That's pretty much like how I read this. It's like, oh god, like, you know, it's gonna muck up the way that I already play the game, so let's kind of nuke it. I would rather something like this comes in and it kind of skews the way that people play to start with, just to kind of see how people react to it. If you bring in a mechanic like this, and I don't mean like a new missile or a new round, which is obviously just going to raise the bar of everything, or maybe new sets of armor. If you bring in a mechanic like this, which is slightly quirky, slightly different, I would actually want it to be a little bit more over the top instead of under. So then it doesn't just fade into the background and people can actually see what happens with it. And once again, maybe it can change the way that people play. Because when it comes to War Thunder and when it comes to ground, apart from, you know, the addition of certain cast mechanics at higher echelons, the game itself hasn't changed too much over the last little bit. And this, as an idea, kind of gives it a reason to shift in a way, which I thought was kind of cool. But obviously people are going to be against change. That's usually what happens. So not really a surprise to see it here. The next one is the model for the Israeli Chaparral does not correspond accurately to the real vehicle. Damn. Will the inaccuracies in the model be corrected? No, of course not. And then just goes through all of the different things. So then the answer is yes, we will most likely add all of these changes after the major update release. The lack of night vision is the result of non-final setup on the vehicle and the dev server. So yeah, sometimes they add vehicles even to the live server, especially if they're copy-paste, and then they'll change them later on. There were certain models that were in the game for the longest time which were just completely ridiculous, like the STA-1 and STA-2. They had tiny turrets compared to what they actually do now, and it was comically bad. I'll see if I can find a picture for you because it was just so ridiculous. I know it's like a vehicle that most people don't like think about, but yeah. So for example, if you have a look at like the oh my god, I forgot how tiny the turret was. So this is the you know what it looks like in game. You can check it in the the standard tech tree, but you can see here like how tiny it was compared. Like it's just so small. Like I don't know why or who went around this and just decided that it was going to be this size, but look how tiny it is. Like how do people even fit in this? So yeah, like these got changed for obvious reasons, like because they're way too small. And with the Chaparral and many others, sometimes they just get updated over time. And the actual changes here, the only ones which actually matter are this one here. The actual change of the engine, because that may change its mobility. All of the others really don't matter. Like the removal of the gunner optic on the port side of the turret, I mean, okay, fine, but does it change how it's going to work? No. Installation of an FLIR system on the starboard side? No, that's not going to change it. Changing the turret face from a rolled homogeneous armor to a transparent window? Also not going to change how it plays, if anything, going to make it worse. Addition of night vision, they've already done it. Replacement of the engine with a diesel one, as I said, that's the one that actually does it. So when it comes to like functionality, like most of these don't matter. and the one which does has been changed, but this one also might change its functionality. The fact is, Israel is getting a new SAM, which is quite nice. Kind of sucks that it's end of the line. Kind of sucks that it's going to be really expensive to modify. Kind of sucks that the missile that's going to make it useful is like rank 3 or rank 4. But you know, you take what you can get sometimes as a smaller nation. The next question is, in this update, Israel's getting a new SAM. When will Japan be getting something better than the Type 93? A fantastic question, especially since a lot of nations have literally got, 3 to 4 separate AAs in the time the Type 93 has been alive in the game. The answer: the situation with Japanese SAMs is complicated, as there is a very limited list of options, and all of them require special implementation. For example, they require separate guidance vehicles with radars, and in standalone modes either do not function or have strong limitations. But as we said earlier, we're working with what history has given us, and we'll try to implement other Japanese SAMs. At the moment, we're working on one of the options, but the full implementation, due to the reasons mentioned earlier, requires more time than adding the standard autonomous SAM system like we currently have in the game. What makes this hilarious, right? What makes this hilarious is there are so many different vehicles that were added into the game without their proper capabilities, without their proper mechanics, and all of that, right? Without any of those things put into the game. And now, when it comes to this Japanese SAM, now there are issues with implementing it. You could just implement it with the wrong systems if you wanted to start with. They have done that with so many different vehicles through history, and right now when it comes to Japan, these guys need this. You know that right now, since you've added so much CAS and so many ridiculous mechanics to aviation over the time, Japan needs something to counter it, even if it is something which is a historical. Then you can work on the mechanics for it after it's been implemented into the game. Just get a physical model in with missiles, whether it has a lock on it, whether it's IR guided, whether it's optically guided, whatever it is, just get it into the game and then work on the mechanics later. And as I've said, this has literally happened with a bunch of vehicles. Think about radars. Just straight up changed over time, depending on the vehicles. If you have a look at aviation, the RWR systems, why did you not fully implement RWR systems when they first came in? Why now are you fully implementing or trying to implement them realistically? Why did you add any of the vehicles in which had those systems? That isn't fair to those. Now some of them are actually losing some of their usefulness. Like the F-14 can't tell if it's being tracked anymore, or at least the A can't. Is that fair on it? No, of course not, but it doesn't matter. Because, once again, you changed it. How about radars? Like with the Shilka. The Shilka's radar, the ZSU-37-2s, or the Chieftain Marksman's. You've fundamentally changed the way that their tracking radar works, and it's absolutely awful. The Type 93 has gone through 5 to maybe 10 different variations of its missiles over the years. And because of, different ways of, programming it or just making it better, making it worse. And you're telling me that the thing that is limiting you on a Japanese SAM is the fact that you're not sure how to implement it correctly or realistically in the game, when so many other things in the game just aren't put in historically or realistically and then changed over time. Like that just, I don't know. We've been sat here for years at this point, with this idea. Imagine if, a year or 2 or 3 ago, they decided to put in the Japanese SAM, along with a bunch of the other ones which were added, which once again, like the missiles, right? The missiles on the top tier SAMs, they got fundamentally changed. What was it, last update or the update before? And now they work completely differently. All right? So now, even those, they just got changed. And now function massively different to when they were added in. But for some reason, the Japanese SAM they've got to get it right before they add it. It just seems ridiculous to me. It really does. Especially with the nation that's hurting so much from this. On the dev server, the destruction of decorators looked unrealistic, as it looked like they popped off after being able to be destroyed. Will you make any further changes to this area? The answer is yes, some of the decorators will get destroyed and disappear with the destruction effect. It will mainly be decorators that look strange with the current animation, with bushes being among them. Yeah, so a lot of them now, if you just shoot them, they just straight up disappear. So they just go invisible. Which, if we're honest, even though I don't even know if I class it as more realistic. Like it, stuff being alakazammed, I don't think is more realistic than stuff being popped off. Because at least with like the popped off thing, you could say that it's like attached at specific points, and then you shoot those specific points, and then it breaks the, kind of the pressure or the friction or whatever, and then it just kind of comes off of it. That looks better than it just vanishing from existence. So yeah, I was fine with the pop-off thing. I thought it looked kind of cool, looked kind of interesting, but now they just straight up disappear, so there's not a lot we can really go from. One of the reasons for asking to add Hungary branch to Italy was Tiger Panthers they had, being more heavily armoured vehicles, diversified gameplay for Italy. It would also be nice to see more domestic vehicles such as the Turan 2, Toldi's Rigny, as well as the 40M Ninrod SBA. Are there any plans for them? No, they are done. They're not going to add anything to Hungary. It's done. It's finished. Finito. Once again, of course they're going to add new stuff. The answer. Different variants of the domestic tanks as well as German vehicles may come to the game in the future, both in the tech tree and as event vehicles. The Nimrod SPAA might come to the game in the future as well. Yes, they will come to the game. Like, they're putting in might because either they're not ready yet or they haven't 100% cleared them. But yes, they will come to the game. Just like how the CV90 Patria came to the game and, was added as an event vehicle, right? So, overall, for like the Hungarian branch, as I said, they do this with like every subtree, apart from the South African one. The South African one was very unique. But if you have a look at Finland, add a bunch of copy-paste stuff. Add a few vehicles to keep people interested. 2A6, BT42, right? Those were the main ones. Then, with Hungary, KF41, Saba, and then also all of the other ones like the 2S1 in the middle, right? So then, over time, then you start adding more of the domestic stuff. So you've already got some of the Turans. You got the Zarigny, and then you got the event one and all that, and then you got the other one which the Toldi, I think it is. Of course they're gonna add these vehicles. Like they'll just add them over time. But if they add them all at the same time, then there's nothing to look forward to in the future. This is something which is really tough to talk about because it's something that people are generally not going to be happy with. But it's just a standard like business thing, right? If you have a product which you want to extend its life, right? If you release 100% of the product straight away day one, unless it's all supposed to like intermingle and interlock together, and then that's how it like kind of progresses through, you don't actually want to do that. It is actually much better to release, let's say, 60% of a product now, get people interested and hyped, and then down the line, like let's say 6 months, you add another 10%, and then you add another 10%, then you add another 10%, so now you're at 90%, then you add a 5, then you add like another 5, now you're at 100. But now, because you've extended it so much, you've now been able to work on other things that may come to it as well. So now, instead of it being out of 100, maybe this block that you had is now out of 70. So now you got another 30% to work with, so then you can extend it again. That's pretty much how War Thunder works. So yeah, they could add like a metric ton of things at the same time, right? We know that there's a bunch of vehicles that have just been sat around in, just chilling, like stuff like the Turpits, right? It's literally just sat there. It's been sat there for years. But if they just added in, first of all, meta stuff, and then second of all, then what do you hype up after that? What do you then add later on? And these decisions are ones which people don't really like talking about because it means that you don't just get access to all of them straight away. And, people want to play these vehicles, and who can blame them at the end of the day? I would like to see some Tigers and I would like to see some Panthers in the Hungary tree because Italy doesn't have any heavy tanks. And one of the problems with that is it means that it limits them on dailies. In dailies, they don't have, if it's kills with a heavy tank, they don't have one. You know, at least Japan has the Tiger, which is, you know, a premium and isn't around a lot. I think it's in one of the boxes now, even though it was a pre-order vehicle. But yeah, so they have that at least. But at the same time, for Hungary or for Italy, they just don't have a heavy tank. So just from that point of view, if you have somebody who's like an Italy main, they can't do that daily. It's impossible for them to do it. So yeah, they'll get more stuff in the future, but I honestly do think the Tiger should be prioritized just based on dailies and stuff like that. So, you know, people can get access to everything. When will the full voiceover of the Israeli cruise go live? Right now, it's just a few lines. The voiceover for Israeli cruise has been delayed. Due to this delay, it's hard to predict when exactly it'll be ready. However, we're working on it, and they will be added to the game once ready. I wonder why that is. I remember, is there an issue with like different dialects or different languages over there? I have no idea actually. I'm not entirely sure. It would be nice if anybody had any insight on that. Like I know there's like Yiddish, right? But like, isn't that like an old version? It's kind of like Old English in a way compared to Standard English. But I don't know. It would be cool to know about that stuff. Then the question, which source material is the reduction of the ammo rack size and the STRF 9040C based on? Is it planned to lower its BR with this change? Yeah, so they halved, I think, the ammunition that the STRF 9040C has. And it is actually based off a book. So yeah, a lot of people saw it on the first episode and they thought it was a bug. And I wasn't sure because it wasn't in the notes. So I kind of just left it and didn't talk about it. So I'll put it in now. So the STRF 9040C should have like half of its ammo now. So in regards to its battle rating, if we notice that its efficiency lowers due to these changes, we may adjust its battle rating. I doubt it will, because the amount of time you actually run out of ammunition on the STRF 9040C is not too bad. I think it'll be fine at the end of the day. It's a vehicle where, you know, you scout first and then you flank, and then if you're on the side of things, bang 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 bang, and then you go back again, and then you just keep doing that over and over again. So yeah, I don't think it will have any issues in that regard. I think it'll be okay. Obviously, yeah, it's not something you want to preemptively BR change, right? It's not like F-16C with just banger missiles that's coming in. So then the next one, is it planned to make an additional armor module for the Turan 1 and Zarini 2? To be exact, is it planned to make their spaced armor removable, like how it's represented on the IS-244 or the M46? Ah, the Chicken Wire Express. This ability would have made these vehicles more versatile. The answer is we don't rule out the possibility of adding this feature to the game. However, right now, this feature is not a high priority, so at the moment, we don't want to make any promises. I mean, the Zarini 2, you do not want to remove the armor, because the additional armor on this is the tracks. If you remove that armor, then all you have is that front plate, and people will just go through it without any issues. The Turan 1 and the Turan 3 I kind of get, because it's spaced armor on a vehicle which, you know, mainly will face AP, so it won't really do too much, and it is just added weight. But the Zarini 2, I don't think I would ever want to remove the armor. I mean, yeah, it's more customizability is positive for people, and you know, if people are able to play the if people are able to play the vehicles in a certain way in different contexts that they want to play, then they should be able to, right? Like they shouldn't just be limited to it. And having more, I suppose, having more ability to tailor a vehicle to how they want is best. And it would be nice if they had like the add-on armor module. It just means that when people start the vehicle, if they don't have the add-on armor unlocked, then they won't get the nice armor that it has, right? I also wonder if, because you have Ostketten and Winterketten, that stuff was like added and then we just never saw it again. I'm just wondering if it's available on any of the other vehicles in the game. That would be kind of cool. Then the last one for ground is it planned to add a better shell to the T-90S or lower its BR? The T-90A has a better shell being at the same BR. It also has the LWS as well and the APS, which isn't useful, but, you know, it's worth mentioning. Then the answer, we don't have plans to add a new shell to the T-90S Bhishma. The battle racing of this vehicle on release of the major update will be 10.3. Yeah, so it's actually better that it's at 10.3. Because Britain doesn't have a lineup at 10.7. You have a bunch of challenges at 10.3. I think the Vickers is at 10.3. The Stormer is at 10.3. I don't know if they've actually fixed the Stormer, by the way. It still might be broken on the dev server. But yeah, the fact is, the Bhishma makes much more sense at 10.3. If they put it at 10.7 with all the bells and whistles of the T-90A, then you would never see it in battles. It would just be a dead vehicle. And the whole point of squadron vehicles is to kind of buff up lineups, right? So if somebody has ground through the British tech tree, the idea is with the squadron RP, they would have also researched that vehicle at the same time while they're grinding through the tech tree. So when they get to that area of the tech tree, they now have the Bhishma, and they now have the challenges. So it just gives you a slightly alternate, playstyle that you can use. But the way that it's set up, if you put it in as with the 3BM60 and everything, it'll be 10.7 and you just can't use it because it'll be by itself. So yeah, the way that they put it in right now with the 10.3 and also the worse shell technically, I'm fine with it. I think it's a good move. So you actually have a full lineup there. Because that's what squadron vehicles are for, just buffing stuff like that. So overall, the questions and answers were pretty good in this section. I think overall there's a lot of positive changes here. I'm hoping that the update comes out next week and we just have the other section to go through as well. So that will be something we have a look at. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R., and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.